Peace, family. It's February the 5th, 2022. And we're back with the DOA TBM, Diary of a Tired Black Man podcast. So, just a little quick update on some of the news going on this week. India Arie is reportedly removing her music from Spotify following a podcast that Joe Rogan recently made some remarks about skin tone and race. So, in an Instagram post that was shared on Wednesday, the R&B singer-songwriter India Arie, definitely peace to India Arie, called out Joe Rogan's language around race and deemed it problematic. Now, we just touched on Tandy Newton and we just touched on quite a few different things that have going on this week. We saw Whoopi Goldberg was brought under fire for some remarks that she made. So it's always strange that when it comes to it, so-called white people are allowed, especially those in positions of power like this guy Joe Rogan, who's supposed to be deemed as some kind of top guy or whatever. They're allowed to say stuff, whatever they want to say, however insensitive, however erroneous, however problematic, and they can't be called for it, or we don't see, the same sort of call to shut them down like we see the same what happened with Whoopi, or we see what happened with others. So, we do know there's a lot of bias and stuff that happens. And, some people are going to say, well, he didn't mean it in this way or he didn't mean it in that way. Now, myself, I don't have the full complexity or scope of what he said, but we're going to try and get an excerpt, which he was quoted to have said the term black was weird. So on one of his Joe Rogan Experience shows, reportedly, he said it was very strange that the word black is used to describe people who are not from the darkest places of Africa. So I don't know what that is supposed to suggest, if he's supposed to be saying, because we use these terms, these terrestrial terms, daily, one of them being white, and even taking a picture of him and taking a look at him. He is not that color. Just looking at that screen, this is white, this is purple, this is like a beige or something like that, or whatever you gonna call it. So when he's talking about language, I think he should focus on the language around his own identity too, and not just that, but who put these languages and these terms into place. If we're gonna explore the thing, we gotta explore the whole thing. But for him to just be sitting out and nitpicking, and especially picking out people of color, is definitely problematic. I shouldn't say people of color because he got that beige color and stuff, so he really a colored person. So it says anyway, Rogan made the comments during the conversation with cultural commentator Jordan Peterson, and they say at one point in the interview, Rogan recorded the time that Michael Eric Dyson had called Peterson an angry white man in the 2018 debate. And Rogan says, "That's hilarious. You're not mean at all. That's what's dumb about that statement. You're not mean at all." So he says Peterson seemed to be triggered by Dyson calling him white, and he says, "I am kind of tan." And he was actually not black, he was sort of brown. So yeah, as we say, colorism definitely a huge thing we see in society. But as we said, it's interesting that some people are allowed to make light in the way that they wish or the way that they can, without it being deemed as harmful, without it being deemed as an attack or ignorant. Now, we all know, to be honest, we grew up in this society where, especially if you're a black person or a so-called black person, you experience a lot of this all the time. The little comments or the little backhanded statements and stuff, the way that people act, purporting themselves to be superior, but really displaying a mindset, a modality of inferiority just by the way that they act, because taking pop shots, a little shade, throwing shade at people, excuse the pun, is under the guises of how some of these people operate. So it says that in the podcast, Joe Rogan and Peterson had debated about skin tone, and Michael Eric Dyson saying he isn't black, which they're right, but they're trying to be funny. It sounds like. I'll see if I can pull up the clip, but to be honest, these others will probably limit my channel. And with that being said, the workers of iniquity at YouTube who keep lying and trying to make things difficult for us broadcasters, let it be known that this is myself broadcasting on this platform, and it is February the 5th, 2022. So anyway, back to this statement. It says Joe Rogan stated the black and white thing is so strange because the shades are such a spectrum of shades of people. Unless you are talking to someone who is like 100% African from the darkest place, where they are not wearing any clothes all day, and they have developed all of that melanin to protect themselves from the sun, even the term black is weird. And Joe Rogan concluded, when you use it for people who are literally my color, it becomes very strange. So here we see, the type of antics and commentary being made from Joe Rogan. I'm sure a lot of people won't be surprised of the slant and stuff he would take, and the attitude and tonality behind his commentary. As I said, for him to be pointing out the terms and the terminology for such a so-called educated person, he should really home in and take focus on his ancestors or his people who coined these terms and why they coined these terms and so on. And if we really want to get into it, get into the bloodlines and stuff for some of these people, because it's one thing talking about spectrums and shades. Even with so-called black, we know there's many different spectrums and shades of so-called black people. So in one aspect, he making some kind of point, but it seems like he throwing shade, pardon the reference, at the same time being backhanded, which is something we would expect from somebody of his ilk and makeup. So anyway, back to India Arie. She posted on her Instagram to a lot of heavy support and expressed her thoughts on what had happened. And she said, I have decided to pull my music and podcast from Spotify. They say Neil Young opened a door that I must walk through. I believe in freedom of speech. However, I find Joe Rogan problematic for reasons other than his COVID interviews. And she says, what I am talking about is respect, who gets it and who doesn't, paying musicians a fraction of a penny and him 100 million. This shows the type of company they are and the company that they keep. I'm tired. So definitely we agree with the queen and the sis India Arie on this one. I mean, as artists and as podcasters and stuff ourselves, she telling the truth, no lies spoken. These companies, these platforms, shit, we using one of them now. Most of the time they do their most and their best to steal from people and exploit for what they can get, while giving the bulk of things to their own people. We look at YouTube even recently with the music deals and stuff that they've done with Leah Cohen and others, ensuring that they keep a huge portion of the finances from other creators and stuff, but they pass down a minuscule amount to the people that actually create the stuff. So we got to look at really cultivating and creating more platforms. We do know that there is a lot out there, but it's kind of hard getting the conversion of the masses of the people, or you never gonna get the multitude, but getting a good enough portion of people to operate and stuff, and people being able to work together. I mean, I for one, as I said, I'm not a fan of this Joe Rogan guy, from his attitude, his standpoint, and his approach to a lot of stuff. And like India Arie says, I wonder who else is tired. Any slick talkers with private pages will be blocked. Wherever you pay musicians, delete Spotify. And we definitely tired too. And the DOA TBM, the Diary of a Tired Black Man, which I know some have their issues towards us even naming this podcast as such. Now, as I say, we're all bound with these terrestrial terms that have been handed down to us. And let's check out, before we end, some commentary, which I believe was from Michael Eric Dyson, who has reacted to their remarks in a statement to the Daily Beast. How apt. And he says, clearly they haven't kept up with discussion about how race isn't just about skin tone or color, but about a host of meanings determined in the social world, said Dyson. And this was about Rogan and Peterson. He said, blackness is not about shade, but about the shade provided by traditions of black thought, culture, and resistance. But in a way, blackness is about throwing certain kinds of shade. And I'd love to go on Rogan's podcast to share my thoughts and chop it up. So it'll be interesting to see, Michael Eric Dyson, definitely a profound scholar in his own right, who concluded to say, I'm afraid he may be too afraid to engage me directly, better to talk behind my ear. And it sounds about right. And they say Spotify, which is the platform for Joe Rogan, is catching heat for it, for not booting him amid recent backlash to his stance on COVID-19 and stuff as well. And he had been accused of repeatedly making false claims about the vaccine. Apparently, several artists have responded and have yanked their music from the platform, including the singer Neil Young. So this is where I guess India Arie took the direction from it. She said Neil Young opened the door that I must walk through in a post. So she definitely called him out. And what do you guys think of this? Do you guys feel she justified? Do you feel the podcast world people should be held to account for some of the stuff that they say? Or you guys feel freedom of speech and all that, they can say as they wish, do as they wish, without being held into account, without having any governance or body above them. So we definitely want to check this out. And as we see this stuff with Neil Young, who had also had some issues with Mr. Rogan. So it's February the 5th, 2022. Those joining us on YouTube, don't forget, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be updated on new drops and content. And to the workers of YouTube, peace.